Is it time to dismantle some doctrines? If you don't know what that means, then come along with me. I'm Dr. Clint Haycock, a former evangelical Bible college teacher and pastor of more than 20 years. Join me as we deconstruct whatever dogmas and beliefs have held you behind, and together work to reconstruct and rebuild your authentic self.
I'm happy to welcome Timmy Joe Gibson to the show. Welcome, Timmy, to the Dismantling Doctrine podcast.
Yeah, man. Good to meet you. Good to see you.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of like brothers from another mother. I have this funny feeling we'll have a really good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love my fellow. So I used to have a beard. I shaved it. I grew one out during COVID. It looks like your hair is pulled back. Is it long?
Yeah, it's there. It's there.
My long-haired brother.
Got a little bit of ink.
Oh, yeah, you too. Yeah.
Oh, loaded up, man.
Yeah, man. It's my favorite thing. I want to keep going. I also want to be able to pay my mortgage.
It's kind of a foregone conclusion. I'm trying to sell my house right now, but the sales keep falling through. It's really strange. In this country over here in the UK, put a deposit down when you put an offer in.
Really?
You can pull out at the last minute. I've had two people pull out at the last second.
Really?
And there's no consequence to what they did. So they could just pull out. I had another sale lined up with another house that I was going to do, and it's completely screwed me over.
That's fascinating. Yeah, here in the States, you got to put money down, and you lose a certain amount of it if you back out.
Exactly. But here in the UK, you can just pull out literally, if you don't have the keys in your hand and the paperwork signed on the day you move in, they could still pull out.
Wow.
And not lose anything.
Wow.
So it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I had a house lined up because I'm a builder by trade. So I renovated the house I'm in now, and then I'm selling it to do another one and flip it. And I had a house all lined up, and they totally screwed me.
I have a friend that does that here. He buys, he lives in it, redoes it, flips it, and then just keeps doing that every couple of years.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
But it's funny because these house sales that fell through, I've been seeing this woman for about 6 months. She lives about an hour and a half from me. And I told her, if I was a Christian still, I would have said, God's behind all this.
I was just going to say, brother, I'll pray for you.
Keep praying for me. The thing is, we had to have a reason for everything, didn't we?
Yeah.
Everything that happened, God was teaching us something.
Right. Yeah, God was teaching you a lesson, or the devil's got in there and messing it up.
That's right. It's spiritual warfare.
Man, it's good to be free from that junk.
But the weird thing is, do things happen for a reason? Because we had this big conversation this weekend. She said, look, why don't you just come move in with me? You can't sell your house. You'll be maybe changing jobs. And again, I would have said that was all God's guidance and direction. But now I think, okay, shit just happens, man.
Right.
You just deal with
Absolutely.
it, and you make decisions and you deal with it. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. I believe it's funny you mentioned that. I have philosophized, I guess you'd say, on the whole idea of everything happens for a reason. I'm like, I mean, cause and effect. You did get in the accident because of a reason, and it was because you were texting and driving. It wasn't because God wanted you to meet the nurse at the hospital, you moron.
Yeah, you have decisions, you make choices. It sounds, oh yeah.
So you're not from the UK?
No, I was born in Seattle.
No way. Dude, living in another country, how's that?
It's pretty cool. I've been here 20 years.
Dude, that is
I
so
came over here to do a
cool.
PhD, and I taught religious studies and theology and Bible for about 8 more years after that over here in the UK, in Liverpool and Leeds for a Bible college. And then I deconstructed, walked away from it all, and that kind of has a way of making you lose your job.
Dude, I got to have you on my show because can I ask, what was the big ticket for you? What began your journey going, I think this isn't true?
It's a long story. It's the death of 1,000 cuts, I guess I would say. But the short version is, when I was a pastor in Portland, I was getting into liberals, more progressive doctrine.
Yeah, Portland's very liberal compared to where I'm at in the Midwest.
Yeah, and so I was a pastor there at a church in Portland, and I started reading Rob Bell, Brian McLaren, Donald Miller. Stuff.
Me too. I met Donald Miller and Rob Bell. I met both those guys.
Yeah, I never met any of those guys, but I read all their books, or a lot of their books, started bringing that stuff into the pastorate. New ideas.
That doesn't work too.
Not really. So I got in some trouble there because I was really excited about all this cool stuff I was learning. And And of course, as people were not so excited about what I was bringing in, and then the church we closed that church down. It was heading toward an ugly church split, basically. Yeah. It's a short version. And I left that church, came over here to the UK, did a PhD, and slowly started deconstructing. So there's a long story too.
Sure.
I wrote a book last year about me, my upbringing. I was raised in the Bill Gothard cults, and
bro, you need to send me that book.
That's another thing.
I'll buy one, or however I need to buy it.
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
I did the Audible version of it last year, which is really good. I think people say it's a lot better to hear me tell my story in my own voice. The narration is really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So
yeah, man.
Where were you a pastor then?
So I pastored a church called, it started out when I first planted it, the what I would call the pre-planting. So I was a part of the Assemblies of God, and then left that and went amongst the Word of Faith charismatic types. Went to Central Bible College, which is an Assembly of God Bible college. Went there for about a year and a half, left, came home, did a 1-year internship with the church I was a part of. It was an Assembly of God church. And then went to Rama Bible Training Center, Rama Bible College, whatever they call it now, Kenneth Hagin Ministries.
Oh, yeah.
Graduated there. I was a full-blown, as I always say, I was a full-blown tongue-talking, Holy Ghost rolling, Bible-thumping kind of guy. And then I was an evangelist for a while, taught School of the Bible classes, and then left there, became a youth pastor. I did a bunch of different things, but then pastored my own church for only about 18 years. And I started it from scratch in 2002. I started it in my living room with about 10 people. And then in January of 2003, we launched the public version. And I was with an organization called ARC, A-R-C, Association of Related Churches. And I was actually their, what was I? Their seventh church plant. I was looking for my little button. I still have it, a little button they gave me. And we were up and to the right. First year, we grew to 100. Second year, 200. Third year, 300. And up and to the right, as you said, I was that fundamental evangelical type. So I was a literalist, right? The Bible's actually true in every way. So Noah built an ark. Jonah was swallowed by the big fish. All that stuff was literally true. It all started 6,000 years ago with Adam and Eve and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you said the death by 1,000 paper cuts. There were certain things, man, how could we find skeletons that are 50,000 years old if the earth is 6,000 years old? Of course, how I justified that or did the mental gymnastics was the carbon dating's wrong. That it's not actually 50,000 years. They're just misreading that. Mm. And more and more, things just started coming into question. And again, I'm pastoring a church of 300 people that I'm the founding pastor. And you said, we never had a split. But as I began to become more liberal in my theology, and I was like, okay, maybe this is an allegorical story and it didn't actually happen. Dude, there was an uproar in the church. And as I started, then I got to the, okay, I love gays. Gays, it's not wrong to be gay now. And so I started studying on that. And just little by little, okay, Hindus, Buddhists, everybody can go to heaven. It's still through Jesus. They just don't know that yet. Just all that. And then eventually the church started to go the other way. I grew to 300 pretty quick. And then we started trickling down. We got around 200, down to about 150. And then I really started questioning things because I'm thinking, I don't think this is actually true. How can I continue teaching and preaching something that I'm just not convinced of anymore? And we slid down to about, I would say, 75 to 100 people. And I finally, at the very end, maybe got down to 50 people. I mean, I did kind of end up, just because it was funny as people said, what changed? Nothing changed except for my theological perspective. But man, I'll tell you, people in the church, when they think something's true and you say, I don't think that Jonah was actually swallowed by a big fish, people, they don't even want to hear it. I'm out. And then the rest of my story is known pretty well on my YouTube channel, where I talk about the final death blow, where I just realized, it's not true. And I think I'm an atheist at this point, and walked away from it. I think for a while I was probably spiritual, not religious. I was trying to keep God in there. And then eventually I just had to be honest with myself and say, come on, there's zero evidence for this. Why would I continue to believe something that literally has no evidence to support that belief? And that was it. So about 3 years ago, I think I was public about, I'm atheist because I just don't see it anymore. And I never would have thought, and I'm sure you're the same way. Dude, I thought I was going to be a sold out radical Christian for my whole life. I was going to be a mega church pastor. I was going to get on TV. I was going to save the world, man. Yeah. I was going to get the world saved. And now I couldn't be happier as a rational human that still values human life and people. And I didn't go to the dark side, even though I know Christians would say that I did. But I clearly, my friends, even my Christian friends, I hate to admit this, Timmy, but you're a better person, I think, as an atheist.
Ironic.
Yeah, what can I say? It's set me free to learn what's actually true. Then I started studying evolution and all about the history of things. And I thought, wow, I was believing a lot of things that just absolutely are empirically false. This is up for debate. No, it's not up for debate. It's kind of the flat earth thing. When someone believes in the flat earth, which is very few, that's just, why would you believe in something that's just, we know it's not true. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's like you said, in a nutshell, that's the story. Is it just was this slow, gradual decline until finally there was no card left standing. And I thought, all right, let's just
I'm out.
And I didn't even plan on, I don't know if you know this, but I didn't plan on even being public about this. I have a full-time job. I own a wedding business. And I thought, well, I'll do non-religious weddings. And if people are religious, that's fine. I can read a scripture. I can say those words. And I still get hired to do religious ceremonies for people who are Christian. And it's fine. I look at it as poetry or just words, and it's fine. But for them, it's real, and that's fine. That's their choice. If they want to believe it to be true, I don't have to believe it to be true to officiate their wedding. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can honor their beliefs. I mean, I've got a friend, Dr. Terry Daniel, and she's a secular chaplain, a hospice chaplain. She's an atheist. But yet when a Christian's dying, she doesn't slag off their faith. She says, look, what do you believe? What do you think's going to happen? And she honors that. Yeah. You don't want to have this problem with someone at the end of their life, do you?
No.
And try to talk about their faith then.
No.
So it's not the time, not the place.
No, and as an atheist, Clint, it's interesting. There's all kinds of atheists out there, and it's totally fine, whatever kind of atheists are out there. I just don't resonate with how would I say it? The atheist that would want to tell someone on their deathbed, it's all a myth, it's not true. It's not the time of the place. I'm not angry at all. I'm very happy, very kind. I don't believe it, but clearly I can't convince other people to not believe it. My goal is really to help those who are doing exactly what you and I went through. I'm just trying to help people that are doing what I did, which is, I don't think this is true anymore. And hey, keep with that thought.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we do go through phases, don't we? Because I've thought a lot about this. I was really angry, not necessarily as an angry atheist, but I was really pissed off about all the years that I spent, the money that I spent going to seminary, Bible college, doing a PhD. I'll never get that back. I don't have a pension. I don't have really much to show for the last 25, 30 years that I spent in ministry. If I hadn't gone in the Navy when I was straight out of high school, I got the GI Bill, and I was able to go to carpentry school back in 86 to 88. Those skills have served me. So I didn't have those, I'd be totally fucked, basically, if I did those to fall back on. That's what I do now. I teach carpentry. I'm a builder by trade.
You're Jesus.
Skills.
You're a carpenter.
They say, yeah. Appreciate
people ask me all the time, do you wish you would have left earlier? No. And only because everything that I've done up until now has led me to this, right? I mean, having spent 30 years as a pastor, it's helped me in doing this. I wouldn't have the experience and the speaking skills. I didn't start out as a wedding officiant. I started out as a pastor, a public speaker. And so I do ring announcing still. I do about 8 shows a year where MMA, mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, pro boxing events here in Kansas City. I do a lot of ring announcing for that stuff. And being comfortable in front of people came as a result of preaching every Sunday for 30 years.
Exactly. Same thing. I mean, I'm a teacher now, and I spent, years teaching, preaching, being up in front of groups. I don't have a problem being up in front of a lot. People have an issue with public speaking and things like that. There's a lot to that, isn't there, where you salvage the good bits.
Absolutely.
Because I was telling someone the other day, I'm a drummer. I play in rock and heavy metal bands. I've been a drummer for years. However, the reason I learned to play the drums was I was in Christian metal bands.
Nice.
Seattle back in the 80s, but I still know how to play the drums. I didn't forget how to play the drums when I became
Yeah.
I learned loads. I saw them the first time they came through Seattle back in the early 80s, mid 80s, something like that.
Bro, have I got a story for you?
them.
So I met Stryper. It's funny, I met Jimmy Swaggart. I've met so many people in that world. And I feel fortunate that I have these great stories. But so here's a Stryper story. One, when I met them in person, I'll never forget it. They were tiny little guys. They were little bitty guys. And I'm not a big guy. I'm only about 5'11", so just a little under 6 foot. But these guys must have been 5'6". They were tiny. Anyway, wow. So my wife's in a band. She's a lead singer for they do rock, but they also do jazz and blues. They do all kinds. They're a mixed bag of awesomeness. And they do mostly original music, and they'll do a cover here and there. Anyway. So their guitar player, his name's Skinny. And I actually did an interview with him on my podcast, and he's got long hair. He looks a rock star. True story, bro. We're talking, and I said something about, man, so you remember listening to Stryper? He goes, I got a Stryper story for you. I said, do tell. He said, back in the 80s, he goes, I was dating a stripper, and he went over to his stripper girlfriend's house one morning, the morning after Stryper had played in the city where he was at. And he showed up to his girlfriend's house, and Stryper was there and had partied all night, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that stuff. This guy's girlfriend had partied and got wild with the members of Stryper.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a scandal. But since then I've learned that's I mean, look at Michael Tate. I mean, look at all the stories. There's a lot of that stuff going out. But a friend of mine lives in Nashville, and he said, dude, I live in Nashville. I've been in the music world. He goes, Christian band or not, they party and live the rock stars. I'm really? He goes, they do. They're all doing drugs. They're all doing girls. They're all doing this stuff. Maybe not all of them, but he said a big chunk of them are. That was shocking to me. I was so naive to think that these guys were praying after their concert, not hooking up with strippers.
Stryper used to hand out New Testaments because a friend of mine got one. The only Stryper story I've got is I used to live with a friend of mine in Seattle. I called him Steven, the giant rocker. Imagine a guy 6'5", hair down to his waist, bigger beard than me, Coke bottle glasses. And one of the videos Stryper recorded at the Paramount in Seattle, and he's in the front row, and he's got these big leather gauntlets on. Every time that shot came, that's me in the front row. And he got a Bible sweep through him one of them New Testaments. But that's the only Stryper story I've got.
That's awesome. Hopefully he still has that Bible today.
I'm sure he does. He's actually got into Jewish, sort of the Messianic Christianity. It was really weird.
Jesus-loving Jews.
He started showing up. I used to go to Calvary Fellowship in Seattle for years, and Steven started showing up with a prayer shawl and a yarmulke to church.
Wow.
On a Sunday. And he started then getting really judgy about, you people aren't keeping the Sabbath. You're not obeying the Old Testament law. And it got really strange. So I don't know what's happened to him, but he's off in the wilds of somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, I guess.
I would imagine for you being so educated in the Bible, I would imagine you couldn't have stayed as a fundamental literalist when you're really learning. I mean, that's what I've learned is that people that really do, Bible scholars and hardly any of them think that the Bible literally is true. It's only that evangelical crowd that really thinks that. They're just reading the Bible only. They're not really studying the history and all of the things that are involved. Dude, this is going to blow your mind maybe. I literally thought Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke, John wrote John, and that all of these motherfuckers were friends of Jesus and knew him, were buddies with him. Yeah. I didn't find out until after I was walking away from Christianity and really started studying the Bible that it's a fact that Matthew didn't write Matthew, and there are no eyewitnesses writing anything. I did not know that. I was preaching for 30 years and thought that these dudes were eyewitnesses. No, that was shocking.
That's what I'm saying. I kind of had a similar view. I thought Matthew and Luke were walking around with a scroll in their hand with a quill, everything Jesus said. And I remember thinking that because in the book of John, there's some really long sermons or speeches by Jesus. And I remember thinking, even as a Christian, how did John know exactly what Jesus said years and years and years later, even if he was standing there.
Right.
I couldn't repeat what you just told me 10 minutes ago,
No.
word for word.
No.
But of course, the answer was inspiration, the Holy Spirit. That's the catch-all, isn't it? The Holy Spirit told John what to write, so he wrote everything down exactly as it was said and blah, blah, blah. It's the get out of jail free card.
But to me, Clint, that even messes it up more, right? Because what kept going on in my mind is, wait a minute, okay, if the Bible is true, that means 100% God is in favor of slavery.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't, as a literalist, now I did pick and choose, but I claimed the claim, right? The Bible says it, I believe it, and that settles it. Come on, somebody.
Preach it. Right?
I believe that. I used to say that all the time. I'd hold up the Bible and say, this Bible is true, every word, every jot, every tittle. I would just preach that. And then wow, how do I reconcile stoning someone how do I reconcile treat your slaves? This is goofed up, man.
Submit to your masters, even the cruel ones. That's what it actually says. Because I've done a lot of episodes on that with a good friend of mine, David Johnson. He runs the Skeptics and Seekers podcast, and you'd probably get along really well with him too, because he's a former pastor. And we've done a lot of stuff on the biblical defense of slavery. Have you ever heard of Doug Wilson?
I have. I've heard that name.
The connection now is with Pete Hegseth.
I've heard him.
Pete Hegseth, obviously. He's a member of one of Doug Wilson's churches in Tennessee, but Doug Wilson's out of Moscow, Idaho, and he wrote a book back in 1994 called Southern Slavery as It Was. And his basic argument is just what you just said. Wilson says we have to support the Bible as 100% inerrant and infallible, and because it defends slavery, we do too. So do we. You know what I mean? So he turns around and says, actually, Southern slavery was pretty damn good. The slaves liked it. They really were happy, and it wasn't as bad as you think it was. And these masters were good Christians, and it just is crazy.
Wow.
And this guy has never retracted it, but that's exactly his argument. You have to defend slavery. You have to say all this stuff because the Bible is inerrant and infallible.
Kudos to him for at least being authentically, hey, if I'm going to believe this part over here, I'm going to believe the bad parts too.
Exactly.
And I never could buy into the bad parts. I just stayed away from that.
I think a lot of pastors do. Passages.
I stayed on love. I taught on love and that kind of stuff. I don't know about sending everybody to hell right now.
I think you're right, though, because for me, as a biblical scholar, the reason I got into Greek and Hebrew and everything, because I wasn't an ethicist at the time, I wanted to find out the truth, the one true reading of the Bible. There was one true meaning, one true interpretation of the Bible, and I got to dig into textual criticism and Greek and Hebrew and Hebrew syntax and Greek syntax. I mean, I got really into it. And then in the end, I discovered there's still multiple meanings. There's still multiple and that blew my mind. I remember sitting in a Greek syntax class in Portland in Western Seminary, and the professor, we were really digging into one of these problem passages, and I'm okay, we're going to find I think it was the passage where Paul says something, I do not permit a woman to speak in church and she must be silent. And I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a way around this. And he said, look, there's a couple of different possibilities, but basically we can't nail this thing down. I thought, what? Come on.
Wow. And that's what
give me the answer, man.
And that's what blows my mind. That's because every Christian, I'm not a Christian now, clearly I'm atheist, but when I was a Christian, I was thinking I had the right interpretation. And anyone who didn't share my particular interpretation was in error. But that's just ridiculous, because no time ever is one person entirely right in all of their thoughts. I mean, there's clearly things that everyone believes that with more information they would potentially change their mind, because now I have more evidence or facts, or I have this stuff that's making me go, okay, maybe not. But Christians they've got it figured out.
That's true.
Yep, they got the corner on it.
I know, but look how many, I was explaining this to my girlfriend, how many denominations there are.
34,000, I think, at this point.
And she said, why are there so many denominations? And I said, it's not the same answer for everyone, but largely it's over theological disputes.
Yes.
Where one group will split from the other, and then that'll split and split and split. And that's really what most of it comes down to, is doctrinal disagreements over interpretations of the Bible.
We'll be right back in just a few minutes in this conversation with my new friend, Timmy Joe Gibson, two ex-pastors with long hair and tattoos deconstructing their former Christian faith. You can hear I'm a bit raspy. I've been spending all week, I've been sick with norovirus. It's torn me up pretty good, but I'm finally feeling better now, good enough to get this episode out this week. So yeah, we're going to come back in just a few minutes. We're going to pick up this conversation talking about deconstruction, Seven Mountains Mandate, what we're doing now, moving forward, and more. So it's going to be a really good half. Just come back in a few minutes. Just wanted to tell you what's coming up here in the next few episodes. I've got a conversation, a recording schedule with Tia Levings. I've had her on the show before. We're going to be talking about her new book. That's coming up this week as I'm doing this recording now. And then I've got a conversation booked with Gareth Gore. I mentioned him in the last episode or so. I got turned on to Gareth from my good friend Catherine Stewart when I was talking to her about her book, Money, Lies, and God. I think that was the first episode I did of 2026. So I've since read his book, Opus, which is a fantastic sort of a journalistic effort looking into this very kind of secretive Catholic, I would say, cult, very cult-like organization called Opus Dei, which is a kind of a worldwide phenomenon. It's actually a very fascinating thing. And Gareth really spent a lot of time going in depth into it. Started off with a failed bank in Spain and then went from there as he started investigating the failure of this bank called Banco Popular, which turned out to be kind of a front for Opus Dei. They channeled billions of dollars and euros into Opus Dei over the decades, and that's what led him into researching it. So I'm really looking forward to talking with both Gareth as well as Tia coming up this week. I'm also thinking, too, it's time to do another reading from my book, Not So Shiny, Not So Happy People, How Bill Gothard, Church, and Family Taught Me Christianity Doesn't Work. This book is available exclusively on Amazon, edited by my very good friend, Tim Sledge. You can buy the paperback version, the Kindle version, and I highly recommend the Audible version, the narration that I did last year. I've heard a lot of good feedback from people who have listened to the book on Audible. They say it's a lot more powerful because it's me actually telling my story, my upbringing, my life, what it was like growing up in a very fundamentalist Christian home with parents that subscribe to the teachings of men like Bill Gothard and Dr. James Dobson, raising their children as well as patterning their marriage on the teachings of such men and the effect that it had on us, all of us kids growing up. So you can grab a copy of that on Amazon. But I'm going to do another chapter reading. I can't remember what chapter I was up to. I've done some of these before, but really it's the legacy of men like that. And in fact, speaking of which, while I'm thinking about this issue of Christian parenting and the effect that it has on children, it reminds me of the conversation I had. We did a podcast with Marissa Burt and Kelsey McGinnis toward the end of last year, talking about their book, The Myth of Christian Parenting. And I had them back on for the Dismantling Doctrine podcast Zoom call. I think it was in early December. And it was such a good conversation. I think I'm going to air that as a podcast episode because we went back and revisited a lot of the topics that I touch on in my book, talking about how the legacy of raising kids and patterning your marriage as a Christian, on the basis of advice from Christian men or quote unquote Christian men, godly men like Bill Gothard and Dr. James Dobson, the Pearls, so many other people that built literal religious empires, sold millions of books and gave conferences and are still doing it. And they're doing this, homeschooling and all the rest of it. So this is going to come out, I think, as well after the conversations with Tia Levings and Gareth Gore. So look for that. So like I said, if you do pick up a copy of my book on Amazon, do me a favor, please leave me a review because that helps greatly with the book's rankings on Amazon. All right, let's get on back into the second half of this conversation. Me and Timmy Joe Gibson, we're going to finish up here. A couple of long-haired, heavily tattooed, two ex-evangelical pastors deconstructing their faith together.
This is a great question, I think, for you, since you're knowledgeable. I mean, I definitely never claimed to be a Bible scholar by any stretch. But what Christianity looked like in the year 1200 is nothing what evangelical Christianity is today. But people that are in it right now think, no, this is it. So if you went back to the year 1200, this wouldn't be it. It would be something else. So are they right and you're wrong, or are you right and they were wrong? So all those Christians before, they're all going to go to hell, but now you in the year 2025, you're going to make it? Come on.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. We wouldn't probably even recognize it.
No.
What it was today. And that's a lot of the stuff about the Gnostic Gospels and things like that. I had a guy on the show last year, Keith Giles, and he's written stuff on the Gospel of Thomas and some of these other lost books. And he says, look, some of these books just didn't make it into the New Testament canon. Why didn't they?
Right.
They got suppressed. They were silenced because somebody in charge said, we're not having that stuff creep into our Bible.
And let's add this.
Christianity.
Let's add this.
And then you got people that were ostracized and labeled as heretics. Arius was a good example. He was preaching a, quote, false gospel. How do we know that that's a false gospel?
Right.
Somebody said that's a false gospel, and we're going to banish him as a heretic.
Right. Yeah. And how many times we banish people that actually later now, after their death, we find out they were actually right.
Whoops. Well, especially the Catholic Church. I was going to ask you, you mentioned Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland. When you were a pastor going to Rama Bible College and all that, did you ever get into Seven Mountains Mandate Dominion theology and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Sort of. So you were into that too?
We were going to take dominion. Yep. And I didn't get, what's funny, when I went to the Word of Faith school, I struggled at first. I remember just feeling, this doesn't seem right. I was kind of that classic Pentecostal kind of person. And this other stuff seemed what I would just term then, I would have said it was carnal. Something about it felt carnal. God wants you wealthy and healthy and above. He wants you above and not beneath. He wants you to be the lender, not the borrower. I struggle with it at first, but then your flesh, your ego goes, I'm the number one. God's going to pour me out a blessing that I don't have room enough to contain. And so you kind of buy into that self-serving gospel that it's all about me and it's all about blessings for me and it's all about making me rich. And I unfortunately, sadly, bought into it. And when it got into a lot of the prophetic stuff and the Seven Mountain stuff and the Dominion and all that, I got into it, but I was just, I don't know about this. Something about this seems off. And clearly, all of it was off. It was off from the get-go, but including all the way back to just Christianity in general. And even Christian, I can't tell you how many videos pop up in my algorithm of some Christian saying how wrong Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, and how these people are heretics, and I'm, dude, you are too. It's all a sham. None of it's true. Come on, none of it has any evidence to support any of it. You're just studying Harry Potter and making some kind of doctrine out of it, and it's just now I look at it, Clint. It's just so weird to me. I sometimes shake my head when I remember my life before. And I think, how did I ever come into believing all this? But it makes sense. I had an interview earlier on another podcast, and they brought up a good point. They said, if you've only lived in a house that had a dirty pool in it, and all your neighbors all had only dirty pools, and you've never experienced what a clean pool was, you wouldn't have any way to think that way. This is what pools look slightly muddy, and this is just what they are. It's not until you experience a clean pool that you think there's something else potentially out there. So, and I thought, wow, what a great analogy for my life. I didn't know even how to think outside of the God Christian Bible realm.
Dirty pool.
It's just, that's the only thing I ever knew. And when I finally started getting the hint of, no, you can have a clean pool and live a free life. Okay, let's ask them questions and start digging. And then you said, the more you study the Bible, the more you realize, of course, this isn't literally written by God or even inspired by God. Hello, read it.
And as you say, you get that strong reaction from people. There's a visceral reaction, because I can remember getting literally screamed at. When I was in seminary at Portland, in Portland, I wrote a master's thesis on the book of Obadiah. And my main supervisor told me, get into form criticism and source criticism. And what I found out, he said, I had this view that if the book bore the writer's name, that's who wrote the book.
Right.
So Obadiah wrote Obadiah, Isaiah wrote Isaiah, Jonah wrote Jonah, Ezekiel wrote Ezekiel. But I found when I studied the book of Obadiah, it's compiled of a bunch of different sources from different time periods and all the rest. It's stitched together into some sort of document. So I went to my second reader and I had all this evidence that I had studied. And he flipped out on me. And he told me, he said, you're not even a Christian. You should not be a pastor. You should not be in leadership of a church. You shouldn't be in ministry. If you're going to come up with this kind of nonsense, and he really ripped into me.
Wow.
And I ended up having to take that whole section out of my master's thesis He said, I will not sign off on it if you persist in pushing this liberal nonsense and all the rest of it. And I was like, what? Unbelievable. Screaming at me. This guy was a Bible college professor or seminary professor for 20 plus years. Flipped out on me.
That is
because I dared to suggest something was not the way he saw it.
Sometimes I've heard this, and I'm sure you have too. People say, how could nearly 4 billion people be believing something wrong? And of course, the first thing I think of is you think the Muslims are wrong, and there's lots of them. There are lots of Hindus. There's lots. I mean, clearly, you as a Christian think those are false. How do they get billions of followers? So that's just that argument just falls apart. And now, as an atheist, I can't believe people are believing it. I talked to a guy the other day, Clint. I was having a beer with a buddy. He's a buddy of mine. He's a good guy, a great guy. He's a Christian guy, good dude. And I said, can I ask you a couple questions? Because he knows I'm atheist now. And I said, can I just sincerely ask you some questions that I just want to hear what you want to say. I'm not going to try to rebuttal it or debate you. I don't believe in debating, really. I'm watching debates. I said, now, since you're a Christian, and I know he's a fundamental evangelical Christian, I said, so you believe Adam and Eve were created by God 6,000 years ago? Yep. And so you believe the earth is 6,000 years old? Yep. I said, okay, so how do you reconcile the facts of what we know through archaeology and science and biology and all that? All that. How do you explain fossils and dinosaur bones? And I swear, Clint, this is what his answer was. And he's such a sweet dude. I couldn't stress this enough. He's such a good dude. And he goes, Timmy, he goes, I know that seems probably crazy. He said, but I believe that God made it old with the fossils in it. So it appears.
I was going to say, could I guess what I could have guessed what he said.
Yeah.
Because I used to say the same thing.
And
created the earth with the appearance that it's billions of years old.
And then, of course,
just that good.
And I asked him this. I said, interesting. So I didn't say I didn't say anything. I just said, okay, now I have another question. Why? Why would God want to deceive us and try to make us think that there were dinosaurs? And he again, he's such a good guy. I know. And he goes, it breaks down. He goes, but it's what I believe. And I was, okay, how's the beer? All right, let's get in. So we start talking about other stuff. I just sat there dumbfounded, though I used to believe the same thing. But now I'm so far removed from it, I forgot. That's right. That's what I believed. I believed that God just made it old and that dinosaurs walked with Adam and Eve. They had to have, right? I mean, if dinosaurs actually existed, and so maybe they did, maybe just the bones are here. And he said, or maybe the devil put the bones there. And I'm like, wow. And he's a smart dude. He's a pilot. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's no
dummy.
No, he's not a dummy. But his beliefs, mine, are unsubstantiated. I mean, he's just pulling it out of thin air.
Pulling out of his ass. But yeah, you got to believe something. I mean, that cognitive dissonance, isn't it? It becomes too much, so you just go, I can't deal with this, so I've got to come up with some answer. But the truth is, it's the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know the truth, that the earth was actually 6,000 to 10,000 years. Those godless atheists, they've suppressed the truth in unrighteousness. And the truth is, it was all done. Yeah. So it's the conspiracy theory is already baked in right in the book of Genesis, isn't it?
Yep.
Christians are more susceptible to things QAnon because it's baked into the actual religion itself. I think there have been studies shown on that. The Christians are more susceptible to conspiracy theories because it's a conspiratorial methodology mindset, isn't it? With your friend, Satan did it. That's the answer.
That was exactly what was coming to my mind. It's absolute. I did a video. I think I said Christianity is the biggest conspiracy theory out there. You are 100% and true. And that's so interesting because I have seen podcasts about that and have witnessed it in my own life.
Sure.
So many Christians who believe in all those conspiracy theories also believe in the world's got there's a secret government and they're running this and that and the other. The QAnon, it's a lot of those folks are Christian. And I guess it makes sense. You're already believing something that's nutty. Why wouldn't you believe something else that's nutty?
But did you grow up during the Satanic Panic?
Yes.
Could do that.
Yep. I did. I used to burn my albums.
I didn't have any albums to burn because I wasn't allowed to have any. We only were allowed to listen to Christian music.
Me too, but I hid those cassette tapes.
I have a few hidden under the seat of my car.
Yep, got to burn Motley Crue. They're the devil.
Man, I Shout at the Devil. I remember buying that album.
Me too.
Whoa, Shout at the Devil. But QAnon is basically the Satanic Panic 2.0.
Yep.
It's got a lot of commonalities, and you and I lived through the Satanic Panic. I remember going to see Mike Warnke in Seattle, probably in the late 70s, early 80s, at my church, Calvary Fellowship.
Yep.
A sold out show. And then it comes out to find he was lying about all of it. It was all bullshit.
Yep.
And yet he's never retracted his. He said, "I'm telling the truth. I was a satanic high priest and all that. It's all bullshit.
Yes, none of it's true.
None of it's true." But he helped fuel the Satanic Panic for years.
Yep.
So what do you do with a guy like Mike Warnke?
Is he still around?
You got a Mike Warnke story.
No, I don't. But is he still around? Because I saw him speak. I can't remember when this was, but I remember the Satanic Panic, and I remember that special speaker coming in. I remember that we had big, huge oil trash can, big bins, metal trash cans, and we all went out there and threw our cassette tapes in there, our AC/DC, our Ozzy Osbourne, all of our stuff, and doused it with gasoline, lit it on fire, and worshipped God.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, probably 83, 84, we had a guy come, because we had chapel every week. We had Christian high school. And we had presentations on the evils of rock and roll and satanic metal and all, heavy metal backmasking and all that kind of stuff. Yep. So we lived through all that. It's true.
That's crazy,
what are you
man.
doing now, though? You say, okay, I know you got to go probably pretty soon, but you do wedding officiating.
So
since you got out.
So I was a full-time pastor with a full-time salary. And I've always been an entrepreneur, so I always had side hustles. And as a pastor, I was doing weddings, I was doing funerals, I was doing emceeing, I was doing in-home baptisms. I mean, I was doing a lot of other things outside of pastoring my church, thankfully, because when the church was on the decline and I'm walking away, and when I finally left that world, I was already, man, I'm doing about 25 weddings a year. I bet you if I pour myself into it, I can do this more. So I drove Uber for a year while doing weddings, still emceeing, still ring announcing at MMA event. And it took me about a year of driving Uber and working my wedding business that I grew it. Now I think I have 10 or 11 officiants, and we do a lot of weddings here in Kansas City. And our thing is, I tell in my bio, it says I went to Bible college, graduated, became a pastor, and I'm no longer religious, and now I just do weddings full time. But man, I'm telling you, the young people that are getting married these days, though some are still spiritual, not religious, are spiritual, not religious. They're not religious. They're not Bible thumping evangelicals. And if they were, they would go to their pastor to probably marry them. And there's just a lot of people out in the world who are, I'm not religious, I don't believe in hell, but maybe there's something out there, so we don't want a religious officiant, and that's where we come in. And I've got Christian officiants on my team, and really good people. So if you're super religious and would feel uncomfortable having someone like me do it, then hey, no problem. I've got to hire my buddy Jason over here. He's a super Christian, and he follows my script and he's on my team. So we still do all kinds of weddings now. I've done a wedding for a Wiccan couple. I've done weddings for, of course, atheists, Buddhists, you name it. I've done Christian atheist. I've done Jewish atheist. I mean, so I just really fit into a great slot because I don't have an agenda. I don't say, wait, you don't live together, do you? I can't marry you if you live together.
Again, I was telling my girlfriend the other day that when I was a pastor doing weddings, you had to do marriage counseling.
Yep, it was required.
We used to do marriage counseling before the wedding. You had to have 6 weeks of marriage or we wouldn't marry you. That was part of the church's rules for if you want our pastor to marry you, you have to do wedding counseling, marriage counseling. So we had to force them through jumping through the hoops and all that.
That's interesting. Now I do offer, but I don't require it. It's a separate package. If you want to hire me for the premarital, I have a course I'll send people through that I did that's non-religious. But I don't require that, clearly.
You don't force it on people.
No.
How can people get a hold of you then? What's the best way? What's your podcast called? And where are you on social media?
So on YouTube, it's just Timmy Gibson KC, I think. But just if you type in Timmy Gibson, I've done enough that it pops me up. YouTube, and that's my main platform. I used to have if you want to know my kind of my deconstruction journey, if you want to hear me as a Christian sliding into atheism, that would be my podcast, which I don't do anymore. And that's on Spotify, just under my name. I think it's called The Timmy Gibson Show. But I stopped doing that and switched to YouTube once I'm now where I'm at now. And then on Instagram, it's just Timmy Gibson KC. Again, if you type in Timmy Gibson, I'll pop up. And then Facebook, it's Timmy Joe Gibson. My original Facebook got hacked, so I had to start a whole new deal. And then I do have a Facebook group called Timmy's Deconstruction Community, and we got about 1,000 people in there now, atheists, agnostics, and those going through the deconstruction process. We don't allow Christians in there. Some have snuck in, and they try to get in there, and we quickly discover it and delete them. But
They're undercover trying to proselytize the fold.
I don't know what they're trying to do, but it's just so deceitful. And all you have to do is we go to their own Facebook profile, and they keep posting scriptures every day. Delete.
They shouldn't be in there.
No, it's not for them.
I was going to say, so let me know if you want. I can send you a copy of my book. I'll get a hold of my editor if you want to hear the Audible version or the Kindle version or whichever.
Man.
But I'm always up for talking about it. If you want to have me back on the show, I'm totally up for it.
Man, no, I definitely, when we get off here, I'll definitely get your info. I have your info. I can message you and pick a date, because I would love to. I have so many questions, mainly because you essentially are a very educated Bible person, and that's just so different than the average Christian. But even myself, having been a Christian for 48 years and studied the Bible, went to Bible school, it's just not... It's digging in your backyard as opposed to being a trained archaeologist who's out and digging up real stuff. It's just, again, I just did not know. I know more about the Bible than I knew as a Christian. Now, as an atheist, I know more about the Bible than I did as a Christian, more accurate. And anytime I talk Bart Ehrman, and I don't know if you follow Dan McClellan. Mm-hmm. Man, he's when someone actually knows the Bible, they're not fundamental. When you really know the Bible, really, you can't be a fundamentalist. I mean, you just can't. And I never knew the Bible enough to get me out of that fundamental stuff until I started digging deep and reading more of the commentaries. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't know all this.
Here. That's what it did for me. My final straw was going to study the book of Ezekiel for my doctoral dissertation. And I couldn't sustain it anymore. Kind of like you're saying, when I studied the God of the Bible, as it were, I was horrified. I thought, I can no longer in good conscience serve, worship, obey, love this God. If this God is real, I can't do it. I couldn't do it anymore.
He's a monster. I mean, and that I used to be so hard for me to say, Clint. I mean, that feels blasphemy. But I could say that. I mean, hello, just read the Bible. I mean, it's so obvious. And even in the famous stories, what, you're going to try to tell me that Noah, that story is not God involved in genocide, killing men, women, children, infants, babies that are in the process of being born, pregnant, what? And God can wipe them all out, murder them, and get away with this? Clearly that God doesn't exist. It's just a made-up story. But if that God did exist, he's a monster. I don't want anything to do with that guy.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And yet people still defend it. I mean, me and David Johnson, he does a thing called Skeptics and Seekers Sunday Service or Sunday Sermon. And we'll listen to a sermon and break it down by some famous preacher. It's really good. I think you might be really
good. Oh, yeah, that sounds good.
But we look at a sermon, and we did one a couple months ago with William Lane Craig, who's a big Christian apologist.
I know that joker.
Genocide in the Old Testament. And he basically turned around and said, look, the babies that the Israelites killed, these Canaanite babies, it's okay because they got to go straight to heaven. And that's the best he could come up with.
That's just not good enough, right?
Wow, that's your friend saying, maybe the devil put those dinosaurs. Those babies got to go to heaven. So it's all good.
That's just, that I've heard Christopher Hitchens just rail on people for that. And that's why I do really, truly believe that Christianity, or religion in general, it does poison everything, and religion truly, truly is a toxic delusion.
It's true. That's the thesis of his book, isn't it? Religion poisons everything. And he goes on to show that is indeed the case worldwide.
It's immoral.
So
Christianity is immoral. Really it's completely immoral.
It's true. And missionaries are going out and destroying people's indigenous belief systems and everything else, pushing their views.
Yep. It's a crime.
It's done a huge amount of damage.
especially
Yeah.
allied with colonialism and everything else. That's another story. It's a shit show. Listen, I will let you go, man. We've been talking for a while, but I will hook you up with maybe David Johnson if you want to meet him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'd love to meet you again. Maybe we do your YouTube channel.
Man, absolutely. I'll when we get off here, I'll send you some messages. We'll figure out a good time and we'll get it done.
All right. Thank you so much, Timmy. I will see you probably on your Facebook group or somewhere else.
Okay. Thanks, Clint. Peace.